Well, welcome. Quarantine has finally pushed me to make a video of how to make my mom's, her family's famous gravy, meatballs, and ziti. So, just a quick background on this, the recipe has changed over the years. So, I believe that my aunt might have the closer recipe because she uses different type of meat, and also she adds some other things into her gravy that my mom does not. I think they're both equally delicious. The meatballs are definitely different because the meat that my aunt uses has pork, lamb, and also ground beef. So in front of you, what you see are all the ingredients that we'll be using for this recipe. You can pause this video at any time and match up what I have in the video. So Italian breadcrumbs, very important. The Cento sauce, 2 of them. You can see the size container that you need. Crushed tomatoes, important, very important. And then you also need the tomato paste. It's paste, not sauce. So you need 2 of those, and there's the small cans. You can see how big they are. So what you're going to do is going to start off just sauteing the garlic with oil, and you're going to get ready to cook the sausages. So I use the Sweet Italian Links. That's a generic brand, but I usually use what my mom uses is Priamo, or however you might say it. Ground beef, I like to go 80% lean because I like a little extra fat. It makes, I think, the gravy taste extra good. So you need a saucepan, as you see, or a sauce pot, and then the meatballs, as I've discussed with some of you, I think it all has to do in the pot. So this pan has been seasoned, so I'm going to use that. So try to find your best seasoned pan. So I have carefully sliced my garlic, heated up my oil on medium, and some basic techniques that all of you should know, but medium high heat, put the garlic in, let it sizzle, lower the temperature because you don't want those to brown up. You want them to stay a nice golden brown and don't want them to get too dark. All right, so now it's time for me to add my sausages. So I'm going to add my sausages 1 link at a time, and I want to brown them. I do keep my garlic there just to keep on flavoring up the oil because we'll be using the oil. Nothing is wasted at all. I go maybe an extra extent than my mom does, but it all tastes the same. So there I am. I have that to the side. I know my burner. It doesn't get too hot there. I take the garlic out after a while. I'm showing you the timer because this does take quite a while. So don't plan anything. Get up early in the morning and get started. So I have the sausages browning up on either side. You don't want to overcook it. You can see how it's supposed to look after you cook it. Trust me, this video in its completion took me about 3 hours. So I have made it a good 30 minutes. So I took all the sausages out. I cooked all of them. You have to rotate them carefully. Just brown them up as you would any kind of sausage link. Now for the meatballs. Okay, so this is really important to see how I do this. So I have 2 pounds of meat. So it's a lot of meatballs. I was planning on making enough so that way we can hold ourselves over until the food stores opened up. The cheese is very important. Look at the cheese, people. This is very important. Otherwise, it doesn't taste the same way. So as you can see, I sprinkle a good amount of cheese on top. Now, the one thing that I can't explain, but maybe some of you food connoisseurs understand, it's all in the smell. So 2 eggs, so really just 1 egg per like 2 pound of meat. Yes, I'm using my hands. One advice I would give you is put the meat out so it kind of like the chill is rolled off and it's not so cold to the finger to touch. I'm showing you the texture of the breadcrumbs within the meat. You should see all the seasoning of the breadcrumbs in the meat. And I've actually think that there's not enough breadcrumbs. I could smell it, I could feel it, I can see it in the meat. So I asked Mark to help me out there and sprinkle a little bit more. So you might need to have an extra hand to help you with this. So you are familiar with Aunt Janet's meatballs. So you're going to smell the meatballs just in its raw form as well. So really use that nose of yours and you have that sense. See, I use my nose for everything, especially with cooking. So I made my own concoction because I didn't have the right mix, and it was still like fairly good. I use a little pecorino romano and also a little bit of what was the other cheese? I don't remember. Just use the other stuff. It's much better. So mixing up, and soon I'm going to be ready to form the meatballs. And I can tell that there's a good amount of cheese and there's a good amount of the breadcrumbs. So just rolling up the meatballs, a little cup, use your palm for that. And that's a nice size meatball, right? Yes, that is a nice meatball. All right, so I don't bore you with all of them being made, but there you have it. And I cleaned a container for some reason. What was that for? Oh, that's where the meatballs are going to go in. So medium to low heat. That oil is from the sausage, so I have not cleaned anything out. I mean, everything is really important for the flavoring of your sauce and also for the meatballs. So quickly start adding your meatballs, and this is where you have to work fast. And the low heat, low medium heat is really important, because what can happen is your meatballs will flatten out from being cooked too much on one side. So you just kind of want to cook all the sides, and you can see I'm rotating. So this is a little bit of a skill to develop, but it can, you can pick up on it very easily. I use my fork, I go a little bit under my meatball, and then I turn it around. Now I want you to notice that right there I have too much oil. So this is the first time this has happened to me, but what I just did, for anyone who might run into the same problem, I just took my handy dandy turkey baster and took out a lot more oil. So I fixed that problem, got my meatballs cooked. You can see nice and brown. You don't want to overcook them because they are going to still cook inside the sauce for 2 hours. So there's our lovely oil. That oil, you do not do anything with it. You keep it. We're going to use it. So I'm going to refrigerate my meatballs and my sausage. So here comes the gravy, okay? Now I have my sauce, my cans, my crushed tomatoes, and my tomato paste. So I started with the crushed tomato sauce first. I pour it into my blender. And I hold on to that can. It's so important that you hold on to that can, because every bit of what's inside is going to be used. Now I've got a small can, that small paste, okay? And then I put that inside. And I scoop it out, go around it, and get most of it out. So again, just like the other one, we save the can. Save the cans. You're going to add water to it. You're going to add water to it so you can loosen up what's inside. And you can see I take this small can and I do this 2 times. I fill it up with water 2 times. That was 1. This is 2. I mix it around. So whatever was in that small can is now in that big can. And now I'm stirring up everything. So all the stuff that was inside that can is not being wasted. It's being used into the sauce. So that is what you're going to see. All right. And then we're going to put it on like a puree. And I added the water from that can that I had. And we're going to puree it. I would say maybe a minute or 2. Make sure you have the lid on nice and tight. Okay, you're going to see the thickness is nice, like a marinade. It's a really nice consistency. You're going to feel like it's Aunt Janet's, most definitely. So I'm going to show you, in fact, the consistency. And that's what it should look like. So sometimes the crushed tomatoes have more water than not. It's just like the harvest of fine wine. Sometimes the wines are a different flavor because of the harvest. So sometimes the tomatoes are a little bit watery. You don't need that much water. Eyeball it. You should know. You should have a sense about it. I'm going to do that again. Okay, so the same thing that I did the first time, I do the second time. Okay, and you can see that I have it up to that stage where I added the water, and then I add it for the second batch. Now this is something that I don't think my mom does. I do. I take that garlic that I have from before, I put in my last blend of that sauce, and I just blend it in. And then I add it to the pot. So now what I'm going to do is for about a half hour, put it on like a low medium. So this is really important. You don't want to burn the sauce. So you want just a gradual low medium. And I added a little bit of sugar there, a little bit of salt. That's right. And then there is a little bit of sugar. I usually use sugar in the raw. We didn't have any. And again, with quarantine, that's all I could do. So white sugar is very, very strong. So I use just a little bit less than I usually would. If it was brown sugar, I probably would have used twice as much of that, because brown sugar isn't as sweet as the white sugar. So there I am blending up my last bit of sauce. I'm not sure how that editing happened. What am I doing? Oh, that's right. So I did this differently. So I took whatever was left in the blender and I just added it to my oil. So this is what my mom does. She just adds water. She doesn't do all the fancy stuff that I just did, but I didn't want to waste any bit of the sauce. Definitely a reflection of quarantine time. Don't want to waste anything. I use a strainer to catch all the brown stuff, and then that is what makes your gravy look nice and dark. So I don't pour the whole entire thing. I poured a little bit in, and you can see how much is still being, I guess, wasted, not being used. I'm sure it was used sometime back in the days. Look at the time. It's already taken me about 2 hours to get to the point where I was from before, and I'm stirring up the sauce, doing it for about a half hour, and it just takes time. Honestly, you guys have any questions, please give me a shout out. You can call my mom, it doesn't matter. Text her, Zoom me, it doesn't matter. So 30 minutes have passed. And this is where we can now add the meatballs and sausage. Make sure they are refrigerated. It helps keep it together. It kind of keeps the fat of the meatballs together so that way the meatballs don't break inside your sauce. Carefully stir, as you can see. Carefully stir. I think I had about 30 meatballs, maybe 40 meatballs. So you saw how much meat I needed for that. And you know, God, those make great sandwiches. The kids love them. It's a quick fix. So my timer went off. I had time to make a mixed drink. Like I said, there's the beginning of quarantine. 15 minutes are over. So I do a gradual, and I think this is important for you guys because everybody's burner's different. My stove is as old as I am. It is 43 years old. So she's a little cranky, and sometimes I have to just take it slow with her, but you know your stuff. So at this point, you probably can start smelling what smells like Aunt Janet's gravy. So I like to make sure when I stir from the bottom up, bringing that nice, thick, rich part of the sauce up to the surface, making it even, and it just takes a long time. Timer, turning down the temperature, making sure it's not overcooked. You don't want things to burn. Lower is better. It's better to have it on a simmer for a really long time than trying to speed up the process. So I don't know how many times I put the timer on, but you can see I increase the time and lower the temperature. So there's another 30 minutes gone by, or I've set up. All in all, it's probably 2 hours from the time that you put in the meatballs into the sauce to the time that things are ready. Now, here's a classic sign of knowing that your gravy's almost done. You start seeing the oil going to the side of the pan. And this is, of course, little tricks of the trade from my mother that she has taught me, which I'm sure her mom had taught her. Big ziti time. So this is pretty easy. The rigatoni, you make your rigatoni. I got a little tray here. So you can do a lot with the amount of sauce that I made here. You can make yourself a small tray because if it's just the two of you, it's really easy and you can go to it. You can make a little tray for a neighbor. So, you know, pass the love. So what I have here is ricotta cheese, and I also have the pecorino romano cheese, and I mix it. So you would need twice as much if you wanted to do a whole box of ziti, and you cook it about 3 minutes earlier, or take it out 3 minutes earlier than you would. Now you see me putting the gravy in first. So that's a trick too. You put a little sauce before your pasta. And then there I am. No eggs, nothing else, maybe, no, not even salt. Nope, I didn't even put salt with the mixture. And you just toss that around. I think I would have done a little bit more cheese. If it was me, you can probably add more cheese if you like more cheese, like shredded cheese. I know people do that with their own recipes. I wanted to try to keep this as genuine to the way that Aunt Janet does it with my little touch. The little added touches, there's little spoonfuls of ricotta cheese. And I put it in the oven. I think I put it in for about 45 minutes at 350. And there's my sauce. She's about done. You can see a little bit of the oil on the side. You can see it had reduced a little bit. If you feel it's not not enough sauce, like you underestimated how much sauce you needed. If you have a can of sauce, just regular tomato sauce, you can just add it, like a small can you can add on. So there I made my pasta al dente. Put a little gravy on top. So you're going to see this is a pretty big meal. Everybody enjoyed this one. This was, like I said, just the beginning of quarantine. It was a rough time, right, for all of us trying to figure out how we're going to cook food. So this is a great meal that kind of stretches out into the week. If you have any questions, let me know. It was so much fun doing this. It did take a long time. That is our whole entire meal. Probably left something out, so hopefully it's not so bad.